Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ellen Maloney. Thanks for joining us today for our sixth workshop in our annual nonprofit series. Let me get the PowerPoint pulled up. There we go. Just give me a quick screen change here. Again, my name is Ellen Maloney. Thanks so much for joining us. I am a SCORE certified business mentor, and I'm also the chair of our education department. And again, this is our sixth workshop in our series. Just a few quick housekeeping items. We have everyone muted. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. We will be answering questions throughout the workshop today. Everyone will receive the presentation and the recording that registered for the workshop. If you need a previous workshop sent to you, please email me at ellen.maloney@scorevolunteer.org. And there will also be a questionnaire that will be sent to you. Please fill that out, or you can always email me. Your feedback is very important so we can improve our education programs for you. So again, 6 out of 7 workshops. And today we're going to talk about fundraising with 2 of my favorite presenters, Erin Hall from Hopeful Horizons and Wendy Jones from United Way. I'm going to let you 2 talk more about yourself.
You want to go first, Erin?
Sure. I'll jump in. Hi, everybody. We are very excited to be here today. Ellen, you know we love doing this. So I'm Erin Hall. I am the Chief Development Officer with Hopeful Horizons. I was formerly with Palmetto Place Children's Shelter in Columbia for a very long time. So I may know some of you from the Columbia area. And my partner in crime, Wendy.
I'm Wendy Jones. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for United Way, the Lowcountry here in Beaufort, South Carolina. I have about a 30-year history with nonprofit fundraising that's both in the philanthropy arena as well as the marketing arena. So may know a few of you in the Lowcountry as well as in the Midlands, having worked at the South Carolina Bar for years and years. So glad to be here. Hopefully we can offer some tips and tricks of the trade.
Great. And we'll just, if one of you want to go over the agenda, and then we'll get started.
Sure. So we've already checked off number 1, our introductions. The overview really is we're going to talk about fundraising, different types of fundraising. We've got some resources for you. And we're happy, as Ellen said, we're happy to take questions throughout the presentation. We will not actually be talking about grant writing today. I believe that was last week's session, but we will be here to take all your fundraising questions.
Perfect. Yes. I don't know how that slipped in there.
So today's presentation, we're going to start off with talking a little bit about giving levels, what those can mean to your institution, new donors, how to collect new donors, as well as retain or recollect lapsed donors, how board giving is so important to nonprofits, as well as, of course, year-end appeals.
Next slide, please. All right, so let's start with giving levels. One of the things that's really important to look at is who are your top donors and how do you classify them? So I'll give you an example from Hopeful Horizons. When I got here 5 years ago, we decided that a $250 gift annually would be our top donor level, but we continue to look at that. So we moved that to $500, and now we've moved that to $1,000. But you could also look at who are your top 25 donors or your top 50 donors. It kind of depends on your staff capacity for recognizing those donors. So that is definitely a personal choice for your organization.
Right. And who do you have the time to, if you're trying to really cultivate those top donors, who have you got the time to be able to sit down for coffee or lunch and be able to get them in on some of the decisions that your nonprofit might be making, getting some input, using them as focus groups almost?
Oh, great point. I love doing that. There's a great saying that if you ask a donor for money, they will give you advice. And if you ask a donor for advice, they will give you money. So yes, pull them in as a little mini focus group and you will get money out of it, no doubt. All right, so moves management. This is really just a fancy way of saying getting more money from your donors. So if you've got a $250 donor and you're having coffee with them, meeting with them regularly, the idea is that you're going to be able to move them to your next level. So that might be $500. If it's $1,000 donor, can you move them up to $2,000? And a lot of this relates to the next item, donor recognition. So it's making that phone call when the gift comes in, or having a board member make the phone call or send a thank you note. And I know, Wendy, you do some really creative things with donor recognition.
Well, we've been testing the waters lately with some cloud-based software to help us sort of narrow our focus. And so we're using one company called Levitate.ai. They're based out of North Carolina. And what they do is they allow you to be able to use a Google email, just as though it's coming straight from you, to be able to e-blast or email a group of donors. And so, but what's nice about it is that email looks like it's coming straight from your desk. So it doesn't have any kind of a sign that this is being, that we're actually using a third party to be able to do something. They also allow us to be able to send cards, and so physical cards, and the cards that have nice handwriting in them. So we can set up a system to say, okay, this is going to be top dollar donor number one's. Here's his birthday. Here's the day that he normally gives, or the dates that he normally gives. Here's what's important to him. And then I can go ahead and, using one kind of a one-stop shop, be able to set up a communication action plan for that donor. And so that's really been helpful this year. And the other thing that we're doing that I think that comes back to even moves management is, for the United Way, it's really important for us to ask a donor, what are you passionate about? It's of course a little bit more simple for a nonprofit that's focused on one possible task. But for United Way, where we've got multiple focuses, it's really important for us to go back in and be able to cultivate folks by their interest. And so this Levitate.ai allows us to do that as well, as long as we're creating groups that we can send these e-blasts or emails out. It's really been great for us.
Wendy, I have a question about that. So
Sure.
with that Levitate.ai, do you find that goes, because it's a Google email, it goes to their inbox versus getting filtered?
Very much so. And so, you know, we had, of course, we've been in the past been using MailChimp and Constant Contact for just, let's talk about newsletters. And so what we're finding out is that using this platform, which also has a newsletter component to it, they are slipping behind the wall, you know, and so they're not going into spam. They're actually reaching the intended, person. And the other thing is, we've got the reports to be able to show it. So it's just, our open rate has gone from something like, maybe 32% to more like 56%, because they recognize it's coming from me or from one of my coworkers.
Great. Okay. Does it cost money?
It does cost money. And I don't know whether, and I don't know where they are stand. We got in when they were just starting. So that was about the first of this year. I know they're a growing company, but yes, it's definitely, from what we see on our side, it has definitely been worth the cost.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's great. And I think it also comes across as very personal, which is
Right.
really, all of fundraising is really about developing relationships. So I think what you're doing is making it very personal, and
Right.
it's making it a relationship. So the last item on this slide, if a first-time donation is $250. So I just use this as an example of your relationship building. If a donation comes in for $250 and you don't know who the person is, you've never heard of them, they have a connection, I guarantee, with your mission, your organization, that's a donor you want to cultivate. You want to make that phone call to say thank you. You want to get them in to see more about what you do. If depending on your organization, if a tour is an option, that's somebody you want to get in for a tour. That's somebody you want to ask a board member to set up a coffee with, or, some way of getting to know that person, because there's potential there.
It's also somebody that you probably want to ask to volunteer if that's something they might be interested in. Doesn't have to be a long time volunteer opportunity, but to get them in the door to be able to see what your work looks like in action means a whole heck of a lot to a lot of donors.
Good point.
Next slide.
Next slide.
All right, and that brings us up to when you never give up. So the old lie bunt, side bunt. For most of you, you probably know that lie bunt means last year, but unfortunately not this year. Side bunt is some year, but unfortunately not this year. What we do within our United Way is that we go back 3 years. And so we take a look at folks who have given at a certain level, that a gift of some sort within the last 3 years, and we always make sure that they receive communications from us. Those communications can be, like we said before, e-blast, but they can also be, what we're doing a little bit different this year is we're making sure that even if you give a gift to us this year, you're not off the mailing list. We're not just going to sit there and say, okay, you gave your gift, thanks, we'll see you next year. We are we're coming up with postcards that we're sending every couple of weeks. We're doing a physical newsletter. We did do a letter. We were going to kind of hold off on doing a letter, but opted that for some folks, it's just more, they need that paper. And so we do send a letter, and we make sure that we do include percentage increases, thanking them for a prior gift, but also saying that this is what your gift could be if you added 5% or 10% to that. So, I
love that, Wendy. That's such a great idea, putting that specific percentage and connecting it with the impact.
Right. And we're constantly inviting them to take a look at our website, or to, like I said, volunteer opportunities. We're trying to connect with them and not say it's just about the money. We really, we're a volunteer driven organization. So we need volunteers to staff a lot of our boards. So, any opportunity to be able to reach these folks that at one point felt like that they were committed to giving to us. So, next slide.
Next slide. All right. New donors. Celebrate your new donors. They have a very specific reason for having given to your organization. They want to hear from you. They want to make sure that you actually got the gift and you can start that relationship with them. The $10 gift is potentially as important as a $1,000 gift. You just never know. And I'll give you an example. Another organization who recently had a $50 gift, and it was someone who had been giving $50 every year. And that first year that the gift came in, they just slowly started building that relationship. This year, the person has approached the organization about an estate gift. So they are doing some end of life planning, and they are including this organization in their estate. And so that $50 gift is going to turn into a much bigger gift that will have huge impact. So I would encourage you to come up with your plan for a new donor. Take some time. One of the things I think that's really hard in fundraising is the time to actually think and plan. So put it on your calendar, plan out what you're going to do when you get a new donor in. Is there a board member or another volunteer who loves making phone calls or writing thank you notes, who will do some of that follow-up for you with the new donors? Is there a new donor coffee or a new donor drop-in once a quarter, once a year, that you can, invite folks in and let them, as Wendy said, let them see what you do, and they will become even more connected with your mission. And then the question of, when do you ask for that second gift? So if you go out and Google this, you will find the research says that within 6 weeks, you can ask for that second gift and you will probably get it. So keep that in mind. And if that doesn't feel right for your organization, that's okay. Maybe it's 6 months, but really have a plan and follow the plan. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is look at your whatever e-newsletter software you're using. We use MailChimp, and we are able to put a process into place. So for us, if I get a new donor and I have their email address, I put them into our e-newsletter system. They get a welcome email, and then several weeks later, they get an email asking if they're interested in volunteering. And then about a month later, they get another email that has our latest blog in it. And it keeps going. And there'll be one email that just asks them for that second gift. And then some emails that just give them resources. So really think about what your plan is going to be for your new donors.
And one thing I wanted to add in here is, how do you collect new donors? Here we're behind gated communities, in the Lowcountry, so it's really hard to connect with folks that are moving in the community. We know they're there, but how do we get to them since we don't have the keys to get in? And so we're relying on a network of community champions. And what we ask our community champions are folks who have historically given to us, who understand what we're doing. And we ask them to connect us with their new neighbors and friends who have come into the community. So that's something that, in addition to possibly working with a data company to be able to get new email addresses or new addresses of folks who've moved into your area, might be something to check into, is that using a kind of a network of community champions who already are talking your talk, who could host small events or possibly just allow their signature to a letter or an email, so that you're able to collect new donors as well.
Great idea. And that's a great way to use your board members.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of times one of the first things that a new board member says is, I don't want to ask anybody for money. And so work with them on, I always say, I will do the ask for the money,
Right.
but will you make the introduction? And I can't believe how many gifts we have gotten because a board member scheduled a meeting or a coffee or a tour with me and his new neighbor, or with her colleague from work. And those are great ways to utilize board members, because they love talking about your organization. They just don't want to make the ask. And we can do that. That's our job. So just think of all the different ways that you can pull in new donors. Oh, let me just throw one more thing in there. You never know who a new donor might be. So every time somebody emails you, or you have some email communication with a new person, whether they are a donor or not, make it your automatic process that email address goes into your database so that they start getting your regular e-newsletters. We have been able to grow our e-newsletter list tremendously because of that. And not only are you going to be able to raise more money that way, but you are raising awareness for your organization.
Nice.
All right, next slide.
Okay, we do have a few questions. And we'll
Great.
take those now. So are you, either one of you, getting a lot of donations that are anonymous?
A few, and I really struggle with that, because I want to thank people and you just can't. We get a number of donations that are through a foundation, but we don't know who the actual donor is.
Right.
So I just make sure that we are thanking the foundation or the foundation staff person and sharing information. I sort of treat them as if they are the donor.
We do as well. We did in our last Palmetto Society book, which is the recognition of those folks who've given $1,000 or more. We do put anonymous in our different classifications, just and maybe the number of people, just so that folks do see that's an option for giving. And same goes as we know who the people are. They just don't want to have that recognition. So
Okay. Then we have another question about receipts. When people give a donation and ask for a receipt, I think this person is just getting started. Do you have specific software you use, or is there specific letters or something like that?
yeah, we actually use Charity Proud as our content management system. And so, yes, there are letters there, that templates that are there that as soon as we run the report of what new gifts have come in, those letters are generated and then sent out. And they're sent out as soon as the gift is entered into our system.
And make sure that you double check your tax language.
Right.
So that you're using the right wording. And I also just like to say that a receipt and a thank you are not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
So be sure that if you are sending out the letter that is the receipt, that you are also thanking them. And that could be a handwritten note. It can be your phone call, but
right.
There's no such thing as thanking someone too much.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that over the course of, a gift here, you could technically get 3 thank yous from us. That being one, the gift letter, which really truly isn't a thank you. A thank you from one of our philanthropy folks, as well as a thank you from our executive director.
Okay, great. And then we have a question about Giving Tuesday coming up. The person asked, is it hard to compete on Giving Tuesday because there's so many asking? Do you recommend doing it?
I will say we don't put as much of an emphasis on Giving Tuesday as other nonprofits that I've worked at before. I think a lot of that does have to do with there are a lot of folks competing for a pile of money on that day. And so we do make sure we have some information going out on social media, but we do not specifically send out a letter or an e-blast. If we happen to be sending an e-blast, we will of course put that information in there for folks, but we don't emphasize as much as possibly other organizations might.
So I'm just going to give all of you permission right now to not do Giving Tuesday if it is too
the right way
much.
To say that.
How about that?
Okay, it works.
We do a campaign for Giving Tuesday, and every year I debate, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? I will say that at this point, we do it because some of our donors really enjoy it, and we try to make it fun. And last year we were able to take, so this is one of my favorite donor stories. She was a $250 donor started during COVID, $250 in 2020, 2021, $500, 2022. I just sort of kept reaching out to her with information, talking with her on the phone. 2022, she said, I want to do something more. She became a $10,000 matching gift sponsor for Giving Tuesday. So that's kind of how we built it. And we advertised that we had this matching gift. I don't think we got any new donors, but we got a lot of money in about a month earlier, which is helpful for cash flow. And we had some donors who increased because they really wanted to meet that match, and they had fun. So I had donors who the next day were like, is it too late? We really want to go ahead and give. And I'm like, it is not too late. We will take your money anytime. And so we're going to do it again this year. So truly, it is okay if you just don't have the the bandwidth for it, it's okay not to do it.
Okay, great. That's a great answer. That's a great idea though, too, the matching.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have another question. Wendy, you said in the beginning that philanthropy is not the same as marketing. Can you expand on that, please?
I can. I think that philanthropy has a special place in you're raising funds. Yes, you need to be a great communicator, but I'm not sure that all philanthropists have the talents that possibly a marketing person might have, and to combine those together as a team, which is how we kind of work here, kind of rises you above. If we can sit there and creatively think, I work with some old school fundraisers, and I love working with old school fundraisers because you can learn so much from those guys. But then when you can put a twinkle in their eye because you can say, hey, but wait, I think I can do this for less time and less money, and bring them, something new to be able to use in order to communicate with their donors. That's always a win-win. And so I kind of look at, you've got to split the way you look at things. There's a company out there called Life Legacy. They do a lot of gift planning. They now offer software, AI generated software that can help you write your blog, write your thank you notes, write your event invitations, all of your letters. You just select your audience and tell them what the focus is, that kind of thing. I think those are the things that communicators can bring to the table for philanthropists. So that's, I think, pretty much what I was talking about.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then we have another question about I'm starting a nonprofit in the close to getting ready to be open, quote unquote. When I'm trying to fundraise, should I start just with online, accept checks, cash? Like, what's the best way to get it set up?
I would say position yourself so that you can accept any kind of donation.
Exactly. Yeah, find a third party that would be able to accept everything, process everything, because they're gonna come at you. They're gonna have people that are going to want to have birthday parties on your behalf and be able to collect funds through Facebook. You're gonna have people walk in with cash. You're gonna have people walk in with in-kind opportunities or offerings. So yeah, I think the more you can be diverse in the way you can collect those funds, it is better for you.
Definitely.
And we've tested cryptocurrency. We have it still, the ability to take it. It rarely is it ever, rarely does anyone ever take us up on it. But just so that you have all across the board, the ability to be able to take a gift that just makes the donor's day a little bit easier.
Yes, it's all about making it easier for the donor to let go of that money.
Right.
Okay, great. And then the name of the platform for donations and the letters.
Yeah, so the two that I've been using lately are Levitate, and it's LEVITATE.ai, and the other one is Impact Writer, which is offered through Life Legacy. And I know that they've got I think like maybe a 30-day free trial. But both of those have been very helpful this year for us.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to the next slide because the next question talks about the next slide about board giving. Difference between a working board and a giving board. What's the difference they're asking?
Yeah, you want every board to be a working board. I haven't seen just a giving board in a while, probably. My stint in higher education was definitely a giving board. We don't have the bandwidth not to have a working board for United Way of the Lowcountry. And so, yeah, the expectation is that when they see the bylaws and what the opportunities are, we expect you to be able to sit on a committee. We do expect you to give 100% giving. It doesn't, make a difference on the dollar amount, but it definitely shows our larger donors, it makes a huge impression when not only is our board at 100% giving, but so is our staff, which we're lucky to have. But yeah, I would definitely lean towards the working board.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. Because you're looking for, if you've got a lawyer on your board, you're looking for advice on how to navigate possibly a planned gift or something. You don't want to just have someone that's there for name recognition.
Agree.
Okay. Thank you.
And then once again, how do you help, how do you offer opportunities for your board to raise money without asking for money? It comes back to those community champion opportunities or social event opportunities where they can at least put you in touch with those folks that they know that could possibly bring something to the table. Just making those introductions is huge. The staff is here to make it work, but those introductions are what we're looking for.
And I think, every board member is going to be different. And it's just like with donors, you've got to be able to personalize that relationship. I had a board member one time who worked in the school system, and she kept telling me, I just don't know that I'm the right person for the board. I don't think I can give a lot of money. And I said, yes, but you have all these other ways that you are contributing. So she contributed silent auction items for one of our events, and she knew and understood the school system and could make connections for the nonprofit I was working with that worked with children in foster care. So she could help us navigate that system and tell us where to go when we got stuck. And then she also gave a financial gift that was personally significant for her. Was it the largest gift from the board members? No, but it meant something to her, and she gave in so many other ways. So I think it's really important that you're developing those relationships with board members and figuring out what else they might have to offer.
Right. Like, having a marketing person on our board is a tremendous asset for me because I can bounce ideas off of her. She's always available to be able to help and navigate something that I might not be able to do myself. So
we have a question. I have heard of some nonprofits that have a set amount per year a board member needs to give or participate, such as buying tickets to events, etc. Is that something I should do, is have a set amount?
We do not have a set amount in our organization. There's a heavy expectation that you should be at the annual. If we're going to have an annual meeting, then a board member shows up at an annual meeting. It's wonderful if they can buy tickets to an event, but we don't have any set level other than the commitment to show up at meetings and to be active.
We're the same as Wendy was talking about. I did work somewhere once where board members were required to give $1,000 and buy, I don't remember, X number of tickets for however many fundraising events. It really limited. Hey, if it looks good on paper, that's the challenge. But it really limited who we could recruit to the board. I would not, if I was creating a plan on my own, I would not have a dollar amount requirement.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. I think we're ready for the next slide. Okay. This is my favorite one. Wendy knows every time I'm like, I really want to do this one. So the year-end appeal, there is a There is a formula to this. There are calculations to this. I really nerd out over it, so I apologize. You're going to start with your story. So figure out what story you want to tell about your organization. What is going to pull people in? And for us, so Hopeful Horizons works with victims of child abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault. So we typically pick a former client and work with them to create that story. And we really want to be respectful of the client and that family. So we don't want Hopeful Horizons to take all the credit for the family's success. We want the family to shine and for us to be a part of their journey, not be the entire journey. So we are very careful with how we tell those stories. And then there is the ask. So I actually go through the letter when I draft it and I count, and I want to make that ask at least 3 times in the letter. And I want to say you, the donor, 5 to 7 times. I know that sounds really strange because it's so specific, but it works. So we'll introduce in the first paragraph, we're Hopeful Horizons. It's been a long year or a great year, or say something about the year. We need your help. And then we'll tell the story. And then we will ask again, and we will give another tidbit, maybe some data, and we will ask again. And the whole time we are incorporating the donor. Here's what you could make possible so that they can picture themselves as part of your organization helping a family. So a little tip I learned this year, for the organization Free Will, and there's going to be a link at the end of the presentation for this. They have a new AI component. It's called Willy, W-I-L-L-Y. And when you go on and log in, it will capture some of your organization's information and then give you I think there are about 8 different options of what you want it to write for you. And one of the things is a direct mail fundraising appeal. So I did it a couple of weeks ago. I pasted in the story and I put year-end appeal for Hopeful Horizons. This is what we do. And I hit submit. And what came back blew me away. It was really, really good. It's not perfect. You can make some edits to it, but it's really, really good. And I encourage you to play around with it, because honestly, if you can find a tool that saves you time writing, it gives you more time to develop relationships, and it gives you more time to work on your donor segments. So for us, this goes back to the lie bunt and the sigh bunt. That will be one segment. We also do a segment that is anyone who has given above a certain amount during the current year. So during 2023, they will get a thank you from us and not an ask. And then we also do anyone who's a new donor in 2023, they will get another ask from us. So there'll be one paragraph within our letter that changes depending on which donor segment they are. It sounds a little complicated, but it's worth it. And I have to say, it's so much fun when those checks start coming back in, or people are giving online, and it's because they read that letter. Or you'll have somebody comment and say, wow, can you tell me more about that family? I just loved their story and it really touched my heart. And that's when I know that we have had success. So that's my year-end spiel.
Well, and I was going to say one thing that we are adding to our letters more and more are QR codes, so that we can either tell a story more in full on our website, or we're giving you direct access to the giving link. So we are trying to make it as easy as possible. That can, it can be a little difficult and challenging with our retirees down here, but for for the most part, we are seeing a lot of folks starting to use QR codes. So we've just made sure that we're incorporating that into our year end.
Mhm. Mhm.
There's a question. So is the year end your fiscal year, your calendar year end, or?
Great
Let's
question.
make it really complicated. Because our year end is March. And so because we're United Way, I feel like we are always on year end. Because we're constantly re-upping for the next year. So, we've got, I think what somebody would maybe call a year end appeal went out last week for us. And we sent out 1,000 letters to folks. And we try to get ahead of the year end appeal because we're starting to talk about, okay, so when do folks leave for, are they coming back after Thanksgiving? Because our folks travel a lot down here. And so, I think our year end is starting to come closer and closer to October than it has in the past, so that we're trying to get ahead of other folks that are asking for money.
You're right.
Yeah. But
Ours
yes, the
usually,
calendar year is what we're
Right.
competing against, although our fundraising year does not end until the end of March.
right. Ours, we try to time so that it hits mailboxes the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we always debate, do we need to go earlier? It's it's hard to know.
And
It's
that's when I
worth
think,
playing around with it.
and that's when we're starting to insert other pieces of communication. So, we just had a letter go out. In 2 weeks, we plan on having a postcard in the box to everyone, just to keep it going, so that
It's great.
you have that letter. That postcard reminds you of the letter, maybe. So yeah, we're gonna keep trying to keep ourselves clear and present in their eyes.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a comment about the board. Some nonprofits have boards using a give or get requirement, that if they don't give X amount of dollars, then they're required to raise it.
We don't use that.
We don't either.
Our board. I mean, I could see where that could be valuable, but unfortunately for the board and where we're located, we don't use that approach. Now we go into whenever we're working, with new board members, we're trying to acquire new board members. Once again, we make it very clear that we're a working board, and so there are going to be times when we're going to ask you about if you might work for a certain industry, help on trying to tap into that industry. Or, like I said, if you're a lawyer and we're working on bylaws, then we're going to be maybe asking you some questions about that. But no, we do not have any requirements on giving to be a board member.
Great. Go to the next slide, to the resources you were talking about, Erin.
Yes. So Association of Fundraising Professionals, there are chapters, I believe there are 4 chapters in South Carolina. So I encourage you to look them up. And National Philanthropy Day is coming up in November. And there are typically good workshops and speakers that you can get involved in. And then Free Will, this is who has Willie. I would encourage you to explore their website. They've got, so for Willie, their AI component, it can do press releases, it can do social media. There's a piece that's emails, there's a piece that's direct mail. I think it's got some good stuff. And they're also, so they're more on the estate planning side, or at least that's how they started. So you do not need to write from scratch. The wording about including your organization in someone's will, they have all that written for you, as well as some of the other non-cash giving options like stocks, QCDs, donor advised funds. They've got all that wording. So don't feel like you have to start from scratch.
Is the Free Will cost money?
No, it is free. So both if you are the donor who wants to make your will, you can do that on their site for free. And if you are the nonprofit, it is also free. Their webinars are all free. They sort of kept me sane during COVID because I knew that once a month they were going to have a really good webinar on how I was going to survive the next few weeks in fundraising. Blackbaud and Joan Gary are just two resources that I really like, and I read Joan religiously. She is funny and she has really smart things to say, particularly if you are leading a nonprofit.
Okay, great. So we've got some more questions. We have a question. Do you suggest using an outside firm for a capital campaign? Any suggestions?
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't want to
100%
kill your
yes.
staff, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did a capital campaign. Oh gosh, it's been almost 10 years ago. I would not ever do a capital campaign without an outside firm helping me.
Yeah, because the one thing that helps with is they make the hard asks, and they also have the ability to call folks out when they need to be called out to be able to
Yes.
if you've got someone who has made their life mission to work on capital campaigns, it is worth the cost. They have dealt with the blockades that you're going to come across. They're going to have great recommendations on how to get, past a few folks that might not be completely convinced. Yeah, I would definitely outsource that.
And I will say too, they were my cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
So when a gift would come in, I called them before I called anybody else, and we would celebrate together. And one of the things I really loved about the firm we worked with is every Monday during the campaign, my capital campaign person would send me the list of who I was calling that week. And I really liked that I didn't have to spend my time deciding who I was calling and what amount to ask for. We worked on it together. They gave me a list. I made my calls. I had fun. I gotta say, that might be a little crazy, but I had fun with it.
So what is the expected cost of a capital campaign firm?
That's going to vary depending on, that's a hard one to say. My capital campaign that I worked on was about 15 years ago. And it, we used someone who was within our industry sector who, he wasn't part of a larger company. So I think that might have been on the less expensive side, but I have no idea what those costs might be.
Me neither.
I think that maybe one of the best bets would be to just take a look in South Carolina at other nonprofits that might be going through something right now, doing a capital campaign, and possibly reaching out to them to ask what they like and what challenges they've had using that company, that firm.
Absolutely. I will also suggest that sometimes you will have a donor or board member who will make that cost their capital campaign contribution.
Mm-hmm.
So be thinking about who that could be in your donor world.
Okay, great. We have another question about in-kind donations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you value them? Do you keep track of them to compare year to year? Is it similar to tracking money?
That's a good question. All right, so we used to put all of our in-kind donations in our donor database. The problem is that we pay by the number of people in the database for the database. So we stopped doing that, and we just keep, honestly, we kind of went old school. We have a binder with all of that information, and we send the letters one at a time. I don't know if that helps. I would say in terms of keeping track year to year, it's not a very formal process, except around holidays. We know who is going to always donate a Thanksgiving meal or, holiday gifts for kids, that kind of thing. And we do keep a separate list for those.
And we don't accept a lot. I mean, our in-kind gifts are very specific for possibly a program or initiative that we're working on. It's, someone might call and say that they've got a computer that they would like to donate or something along those lines.
But they have
and
to be kept for accounting purposes, correct?
yes.
In some way.
So let me caution you on that. The nonprofit does not want to be in the business of valuing, putting a dollar value on the in-kind donations. So our in-kind donation thank you letters say, thank you for your gift of sheets and towels.
Right.
It does not say how much. And the information we provide to the donor is that that's between them and their tax advisor.
Exactly.
So, if you have a board member who is an attorney or a financial advisor, that would be a good place to involve them, because again, you don't want to be the one you don't want to get involved in the IRS,
Right.
basically.
Exactly. Okay, we have one more question. For a new nonprofit, do you think fundraising is more challenging because there's no track record of success that has been established yet? And how do you overcome that obstacle?
Oh,
I think that's a great question.
it is a great question.
Yeah, I think you might not have successes, but you have stories to tell. And I think if you tell those stories, obviously you have a passion. You've started a nonprofit. And so you're wanting to talk to anyone that will listen to you.
Yes.
And I think that that's where you have to start. And another thing that, we talked in earlier sessions, they've talked about grant writing and something along those lines. I think you always have to have that kind of information in front of you, the kind of information that you would need to fill out if you were going to ask someone for funds, so that you've got that boilerplate. You have your why down, and then you can personalize that with the stories and still be able to, even though you don't have possibly the data that tells them exactly how many people you've helped, how many school books you've given out or backpacks,
right?
You still have the ability to tell your story.
Yes. Wendy nailed it. 100%.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Erin and Wendy. This was great. Lots of great information. We appreciate your time today. I'm just going to go through a few insights. So next week, we'll have our last workshop in this series. Coastal States Bank is our sponsor for this series, which we appreciate very much. And 2 of their employees will be with us to talk about what nonprofits need to do to get started. And even if Coastal States Bank is not in your area, there's a lot of great information that you can go and ask your local bank. So it's not just geared with Coastal States, it's any bank, and how to get started with nonprofits, from credit cards to what kind of accounts you should have. So it'll be a great workshop to end this series. And then the next week, we'll have our last workshop in our veterans series, personal credit and small business lending with Bank of America, which is the sponsor for that. And then our last workshop in our QuickBooks series, reporting and report customization with Chuck Emery. And then Altamise Nicole will be back with building a strategic approach to social media content, which is also great for nonprofits. Content is a big topic, and especially with nonprofits, can be very sensitive subjects. And then the last workshop for 2023 will be with Doug Lineberry on designs, patents, protecting all those things that you have created, even a logo. And then SCORE, South Carolina Lowcountry, if you need a mentor, we are here to help. You can visit the website that is on the PowerPoint and fill out just a few quick questions. and we can meet with you in person, through Zoom, on the phone, and it's all confidential. And we are looking for volunteers. We need business mentors, workshop presenters, behind the scenes people, and we have an immediate need for Spanish speaking business mentors. And then follow us on social media for the most up-to-date information. And again, we would like to thank our sponsor for our series this year, Coastal States Bank. And I want to